Ladies and gentlemen, good evening and welcome to our special edition with a special guest. I would like to welcome Gianni Buqquicchio, who is the President of the Venice Commission. Excellency, welcome back to Moldova and welcome to Moldova One. Good evening.
Thank you very much. I'm very happy to be here in Moldova and have a talk with you today.
Before we start our discussion, I suggest that we watch a short video about Venice Commission and about Gianni Buqquicchio.
Gianni Buqquicchio s-a născut la 19 noiembrie 1944 în Bari, Italia. A absolvit facultatea de drept de la Universitatea din Bari, după care a predat dreptul public, iar în 1968 a fost decorat cu titlul de doctor în drept cum laude. Începând cu anul 1971, conduce divizia Dreptul Public în cadrul Consiliului Europei. Până în anul 2009, Gianni Buqquicchio este responsabil de mai multe comisii interguvernamentale în cadrul Consiliului care se preocupă de dreptul administrativ, internațional, libera circulație sau protecția datelor. Gianni Buqquicchio a fost responsabil de organizarea conferinței miniștrilor justiției ai țărilor UE, iar în 1990 a contribuit la înființarea și dezvoltarea Comisiei Europene pentru Democrație prin drept a Consiliului Europei, cunoscută și sub denumirea de Comisia de la Veneția. Din 2009 devine președinte al Comisiei, funcție în care a fost reales în 2011, 2013 și 2015. Comisia de la Veneția este un organ consultativ al Consiliului Europei în chestiuni constituționale. Din ea fac parte 60 de membri și este recunoscută pe plan internațional drept o instanță de reflectare independentă. La solicitarea unei curți constituționale, Comisia de la Veneția adoptă cu titlul consultativ avize amicus curiae. Comisia de la Veneția este de multe ori consultată pentru acordarea promptă a unor soluții constituționale pentru statele în tranziție, conform standardelor și bunelor practici în domeniu. În cadrul activității sale, președintele Comisiei de la Veneția a îmbunătățit conceptul și proiectele de dezvoltare a dreptului constituțional și a contribuit la dezvoltarea instituțiilor democratice atât în Europa cât și în afara ei. În 2009 a fost decorat cu Ordinul de Onoare al Republicii Moldova. În 2013 și 2015 lui Gianni Buqquicchio i s-au conferit titlurile de doctor honoris causa al Universității din Košice, Slovacia, Universitatea București, Universitatea Europeană din Tirana, Albania și Universitatea Babeș-Bolyai din Cluj-Napoca.
This was our short video about you, Mr. President. So, Mr. President, after the collapse of communism in 1990s, you are one of the pioneers and one of the key promoters of creating within the Council of Europe of the European Commission, as people call it, the Venice Commission. How much has Europe changed over the past years, in your opinion?
It's a good question. Indeed, I started this great adventure even before 1990. It was in 1988 with a great Italian lawyer, Mr. La Pergola, who at that time was Minister for European Affairs of Italy, and he had the idea to establish in the framework of the Council of Europe a special body of constitutional lawyers in order to help countries in developing democracy. This idea was refused twice by the Council of Europe. But finally, thanks to the fall of the Berlin Wall in 1989, the authorities of the Council of Europe accepted this idea and the Venice Commission started to work. I remember my first visit in Central and Eastern Europe was in Bucharest, a few months after the death of Ceausescu. Then next country was Albania, Bulgaria, and then I think Moldova in 93, 94. At that time, when I was for the first time in Romania, and it was my first visit in Central Europe, I was really surprised. And I thought that those countries needed 50 years before getting an average level of Western European countries. I was wrong. I was wrong because much earlier all these countries had a very, very important development, social, political, economic development. All of them became members of the Council of Europe, and many of them members of the European Union. So this is a good progress. So I was wrong in thinking 50 years, but perhaps not completely, because although much progress has been realized and done in this region, including Moldova, but much remains to be done. You have now good laws, good legislation. I'm thinking about, for instance, the last common endeavor we had concerning the reform of the Procuratura. So your law on this subject is very good, but another thing is the implementation. So the next step would be to preserve what has been done, but also to take care of the implementation.
So what role did the Venice Commission play? And what role does the Venice Commission play in democratic developments in former communist countries or former Soviet provinces that declared their independence in the 1990s?
I would say that the Venice Commission didn't play any role, because this was the role played by the societies of the post-communist countries themselves. But the role of the Venice Commission was that one of accompanying the countries and the societies in the reforms toward a more democracy, more liberalism, more welfare for the population of the countries of the region.
Indeed, this year, Mr. President, on the 24th of July, Moldova will mark its 25th anniversary since the Moldovan Parliament has ratified the European Convention for Human Rights. In your opinion, how does Moldova look after 2 decades following the ratification of the European Convention on Human Rights?
I would say that it looks well. Again, many progress has been done in Moldova, and the respect for human rights is prevailing in your country. Of course, nothing is perfect in the world, and it could be always very well improved. So for the human rights protection, for instance, I would say that the next step should be a full constitutional complaint before the Constitutional Court of Moldova in order to better respect and protect the human rights of the people.
Yes, but the Constitutional Court of Moldova is a relatively young court compared with the other courts. Over the past 2 decades of its activity, or over the past 2 decades, the different governments have put pressures on the Constitutional Court. In 2013, for instance, we remember the authorities, they took some actions, and the Venice Commission was prompt in its response to prevent the Moldovan parliament from adopting an anti-democratic law that would have constrained the powers of the Constitutional Court. And we see the same things in other countries. So what is the role of the Venice Commission in ensuring or securing the independence of the Constitutional Court from politicians?
The first task of the Venice Commission when it was established was to help and cooperate with post-Soviet countries in drafting new democratic constitution. But immediately we understood that this was good, but we needed a body, a court, a constitutional court, in order to guarantee these constitutions. So we started to cooperate first to push the countries to create new full-fledged constitutional courts. And then we started a cooperation with all the European constitutional courts. This cooperation now it extended also to the world constitutional courts, because the Venice Commission took the initiatives in 2009 to establish the World Conference of Constitutional Courts, Constitutional Justice. And now we have 105 constitutional courts or Supreme Courts with constitutional competencies, member of this conference. So then, of course, we try to defend, to protect constitutional courts from undue pressure. Unfortunately, I must say that even recently, several constitutional courts, European and non-European, are under pressure. You referred to the case of the Constitutional Court of Moldova in 2013, and indeed I remember very well, I was traveling, I don't remember which country, when I was informed that there was this initiative in order to nullify in a way the Constitutional Court of Moldova, and immediately with my office in Strasbourg we decided to make a statement which was taken also by the European Union. At that time Lady Ashton referred to our statement in order to protect and defend the Constitutional Court of Moldova, and we won, because the Parliament didn't take any further step, and the Constitutional Court of Moldova continued its work. You also said that Moldova is not the only case, and indeed you are right. Nowadays we have a very important case with the Constitutional Tribunal of Poland. We have given two opinions on this issue, and we are very, very worried about the situation of this court, and I hope that the Polish authorities will take all the necessary steps in order to facilitate the work of the tribunal. Something has been already done, but I hope that more could be done and will be done in the next future. We have problems also in Slovakia now, where there are some members of constitutional courts, Court of Slovakia, who are not yet appointed, and this could starve in a way the efficiency of the Constitutional Court of Slovakia, and I hope that soon a solution will be found. So in many countries there are problems. In Turkey, for instance, 2 years ago, there was also a problem concerning the court because they took a decision which didn't please the authorities, and there were some threats to dissolve the court, but unfortunately it didn't happen. So we must always be ready to defend the constitutional courts from undue pressure, because a constitutional court is the guarantor of the constitution of a country. It must be independent, must be seen as independent.
Last year, the Constitutional Court of Moldova has adopted an important ruling which allowed Moldovan citizens and the courts, Moldovan courts, to so-called lift the exceptions of constitutionality. In the past, the agenda of the court was dominated by political issues, but today political issues represent approximately 5 to 7% of its agenda. I want to ask you if this reform can be a step towards the so-called individual recourse to the Constitutional Court.
This was already a very good decision, a very good step forward, but this is a first step. You are right. Moldova, should go towards a full constitutional complaint in order to better protect the rights of the individuals here in Moldova. And from an egoistic point of view, would say also that doing so, the Constitutional Court of Moldova would be a filter towards or before cases come to the Strasbourg Human Rights Court. As you know, the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg is overburdened by thousands and thousands of cases. If the constitutional courts of the member states of the Council of Europe function as a filter and decide on this kind of cases, they will not go, or not all of them, go to the Strasbourg court, and the Strasbourg court will really play its role of the subsidiarity in comparison to the national constitutional courts. This is the way. Since many years we are pushing and encouraging our member countries to give this additional competence to their constitutional courts. In Moldova there was a trial in 2004. There was a proposal to introduce the full constitutional complaint, but the initiative failed by 2 votes only in the parliament. It's a pity.
Mr. President, the Constitutional Court of Moldova quite often turns to the Venice Commission asking for amicus curiae. Quite recently, our Constitutional Court has asked for your opinion on Article 307 from the Constitution. Well, the fact that you get so many requests from our Constitutional Court, does it mean, is this an indication that Moldovan laws are of bad quality?
No, not at all. This proves that we have a very good cooperation with Moldova and with the Constitutional Court of Moldova. Several constitutional courts of other countries request amicus curiae opinions to the Venice Commission. This is a very good step forward, in my opinion. It didn't exist at the beginning of the Venice Commission. It was this new competence was developed in the course of the life of the Commission. I would say we started around 10 years ago to give amicus curiae opinion to constitutional courts, and it's a tendency which widespread now. Several courts ask for an opinion, and I would like to say that this gives more legitimacy to the decision of the Constitutional Court, because the Constitutional Court, the decision will be found on the comparative law elements which are provided by the Venice Commission. And another effect of this is that there is a unifying movement and a better cooperation among constitutional courts, because they can take inspiration from each other. This is a good development, in my opinion.
Well, besides the recommendations, besides the advice on Constitutional Court, the Venice Commission gives advice on electoral matters. So lately there have been many discussions in our country about changes to the electoral law and moving to a mixed electoral system. What would be the recommendations of the Venice Commission to us, taking into account the fact that in 2013 the Venice Commission has already provided a positive opinion? You also have provided some recommendations to our country at the time, but taking into account the fact that in 2018, in late 2018, we will have new elections, is it a good thing to change the election system now? What are the standards of the Venice Commission in this regard?
A democracy without free and fair elections cannot exist. That's why the Venice Commission, in addition to the cooperation with constitutional courts, is also very active in the electoral field. And we have cooperated with all the European countries in reforming electoral legislation, and especially Moldova. For many years and in many occasions we have exchanged our views in order to improve the electoral legislation of Moldova. We have also elaborated some standards which are contained in the Code of Good Practice for the elections, and another code, a Code of Good Practice in referendum. These two important basic texts contains the main rules, the principles for free and fair elections. And they have been even adopted by the Committee of Ministers of the Council of Europe and the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe. So we have a set of standards, and on the basis of these standards we advise countries in order to improve their electoral legislation. Concerning your question, precise question on the mixed electoral system, I would say a few things. First, indeed, we gave an opinion which was critical concerning a possible electoral system in Moldova. And fortunately, the parliament didn't switch to this system. Now, there are some ideas in order to revise the electoral legislation, and this is good because your electoral legislation needs some improvements. I have already had some discussions with the national authorities of Moldova, and I said that we are at your disposal in order to share our experiences and advise you on the best possible solution. Having said this, I would say also that the choice of the electoral system is a sovereign choice. It belongs to the society, to the people, to the authorities of the country to choose the best electoral system which fits with the society and the needs of the society. So we don't intervene. The most important thing for us is that the system must work and must be free and fair for everybody. There are some conditions, and these are, you should, if you want to change a system, you should do this long before the next elections, because you should not change the rule of the game just before the elections. And we say that this must be done at least 1 year before an election, national election. The second condition is that there must be the best and large possible consultation with all the stakeholders, the society, the civil society, the political parties, and everybody must be involved in these discussions. And the third condition, which often is not easy to realize, is to have the largest possible consensus among the political forces on a new electoral system. But having said this, we are ready to continue our long-standing cooperation with Moldova in the electoral field in order to improve the electoral legislation.
Mr. President, in our country, the biggest problem of the judiciary is corruption. For this reason, dramatic actions have been taken to toughen the laws against corruption. But there is the risk that these measures may affect and may undermine the independence of the judiciary. To what extent the Venice Commission can help Moldova to tackle this issue? Thank you.
Unfortunately, this is not a problem, the only problem for Moldova itself, but it concerns many countries. Corruption is unfortunately widespread in post-Soviet countries, but also in Western Europe, etc. Of course, in this region is particularly acute, and this has a very bad impact on the independence of the judiciary, because and the independence of the judiciary is very important for the ordinary people who have the right to have an impartial, neutral, and independent judge who decide on his or her own case. That's why we, for instance, we have accepted. It was not easy, but we accepted because the phenomenon was very, very important. Two main changes in Ukraine and in Albania. We accepted that there could be a general vetting, cleaning of all the judges of the two countries, of course with some special safeguards, because this could also lead to other problems. So we, together with the authorities in Ukraine, one side, and the Albanian on the other side, we cooperated for a judicial reform at the constitutional level in both countries, and now these reforms are in place, have been adopted, and now they are implemented, and we will be very strict in following this implementation, because it could be a very sensitive issue. But I hope that in this way the judiciary will be cleaned, and there will be a better trust of the people in the judges, because this is important. The people should not lose his trust in the judiciary.
You were speaking earlier that Moldova is is frequently asking the opinions of the Venice Commission. You were saying that you have fruitful cooperation with the Moldovan authorities. I want to ask you to what extent other countries, members of the Council of Europe, turn to the Venice Commission for your advice. How often do they turn to you, the others?
It's not easy to answer to this question. It depends. It depends. I would say that Moldova is one of our best clients. And we have a very good cooperation since early 90s. We have done a lot together. Not all our recommendations have been followed, but many of them, and it's very good. I think that Moldova asks voluntarily our cooperation because I'm sure first, they are really committed to develop democracy in the country, the authorities. And second, because an opinion of the Venice Commission, when it is followed, give more legitimacy and more strength to the legislative initiative in process in the country. And third, the European Union follows regularly our work and our cooperation with many candidate countries or countries with which there is an association agreement, etc. So this is also in the interest of the country in order to facilitate the relations with the European Union. But Moldova is not the only best clients. We are working very well and very much with Ukraine, Bosnia and Herzegovina, Armenia, Georgia, and other countries, even outside Europe. One of the best recent success of the Venice Commission has been its cooperation with Tunisia for the new democratic constitution after the Arab Spring. At the beginning, there was no confidence among ourselves, the Venice Commission and the Tunisian Parliament, but step by step, they understood that we were completely neutral, impartial. We understood the special needs and tradition of the Tunisian society, and we did together a marvelous work.
Your Excellency, we have seen attempts recently by some countries of the member states to move away from European values. In Turkey, they talk about capital punishment, going back to capital punishment. In the Russian Federation, by law, they have introduced a mechanism that allows the government not to enforce the judgments of the European Court for Human Rights. So, in this context, if the EU develops its own mechanism for human rights, to what extent the European Convention and the European Court will survive?
You are right. There are a lot of challenges for, I wouldn't say not only Europe, but for the world today. Concerning your specific question, I am a little bit more optimistic than you. in Turkey, indeed, they are talking about a possible reintroduction of the death penalty, but until now, fortunately, nothing has been done. And in the other country you have quoted, which was... Yes, Russia. Russia, yeah, indeed, there was indeed some 2 years ago already a new law which has given the competence to the Constitutional Court of Russia to say whether a decision of the Human Rights Court of Human Rights is compatible and in conformity with the Russian Constitution, and if not, the authorities are allowed not to implement this decision. We have given an opinion on this issue, and which was a little bit critical, but at the same time I'm happy and optimistic because there is a dialogue between the Russian Constitutional Court and the Human Rights Court in Strasbourg. So, and this dialogue should facilitate a better application and execution of the decision of the court, of the Human Rights Court. Concerning a possible competition between the Strasbourg system and the European Union Charter of Human Rights, I'm also optimistic because the European Union Charter foresees all the human rights which are in the European Convention on Human Rights. And in addition, there is in the European Union Treaty a provision which foresees for the future the accession of the European Union to the Human Rights Convention. This was almost done 1 year ago, but unfortunately it was the decision of the Court of Justice of the European Union, which has established some very stringent conditions for this accession, and unfortunately the process for the accession has been slowed down, and I think we will need more time in order to realize this accession, which will make stronger the protection of human rights in Europe.
Mr. President, and the last question. Europe goes through a very complicated period. The migrant crisis, terrorism, which have changed the agendas of many chancelleries in Europe. What would be your message for Moldovans? Because the number of Eurosceptics is growing. What would be your message about the future of Europe?
We have a lot of challenges, and I am a little bit sad. You said migration, terrorism. I would add also populist movement. I would also add economic crisis, financial crisis, etc. I think since the end of the Second World War, we have been lucky. Western society, the Central and Eastern society have been lucky after 1990. We have lived in a very good period, and this good period perhaps is finishing. Things are changing in Europe and in the world. But without Europe, we don't have any future. So we must continue to believe in Europe, in the European countries all together, with solidarity in order to defend and protect the European values. Without this, again, we don't have future.
Mr. President, thank you very much for this interview and a lot of success to you. So, ladies and gentlemen, we will finish this special program. I would like to remind you that we had a discussion with the President of the Venice Commission, Gianni Buqquicchio. So, goodbye and have a nice evening.